Hello, and welcome to this episode of To the Point, where we sit down with public sector thought leaders to discuss the latest trends impacting government technology professionals and how they're working to solve today's most challenging priorities. I'm Claire Bailey, Chief Security Advisor at Tanium.
And I'm Chris Cruz, Public Sector Chief Information Officer at Tanium. Today, we are sitting down with Dan Lohrmann, who is an internationally acclaimed cybersecurity expert, former state of Michigan CISO and technology leader, Cyber Mayday author, and our current Field CISO for public sector at Presidio, to discuss his proven strategies for success in public sector IT leadership. Dan, welcome to the program.
Chris, it's great to be with you. Thanks.
Great to have you. Well, we're going to get right into the questions, Dan, for you, because obviously we have a lot to cover given your area of expertise. So Dan, given the evolution of the CISO role, what do you foresee coming here in 2025 of the role and the expectations?
Yeah, CISO role is really evolved quite a bit. And it's, a lot of things have stayed the same, but a lot of things have changed over the years. And so I think to start off, I just want to mention, it's different in different organizations. I work a lot with governments, state, local government, education, universities, and some are decentralized. So the CISO is kind of, more independent. Others, it's obviously very centralized and they have large teams. So my comments really on this are going to be more towards the larger enterprise accounts, whether that be county, city, or state, how you do that job. And I think the role is really, the scope of the role has changed. It's the cyber threats are more dangerous than ever before. They're coming at us from nation states. They're coming at us from different actors. We're seeing large impacts from ransomware. So the headlines are, we had headlines 10 years ago, but they're nothing like they are today. So it seems like a day can't go by that CISO is not quoted somewhere about some kind of ransomware attack or cyber threat. So I think that's, a huge issue. But I think one of the big things that's changed as we moved into 2025 and as we move into the second half of this decade is the role of the supply chain plays and the role that it's a 360 degree job, both your staff, the people who report to you, your peers, those who are above you, working with the vendor community, and then also working with your clients and the citizens of your state or the constituents. And so I think having those relationships, I think we're going to talk about that a little bit, is so key. And the role is gotten more complex, quite frankly, and it's become more vital than ever. C-suite relationships are really important, whether that be all the way up to the governor, the mayor, the lead of your government, and also the relationship certainly within IT. So those are just some of the changes that are happening, but I think the scope and the importance of the role has never been greater than in 2025.
I was going to calculate the years of experience that we brought to the table, but I decided not to do that. Being seasoned, one of the things that I loved across our careers is how we all work together and how we mentored one another. So can you give us your perspective of how we can provide mentorship to those new and evolving security leaders that are joining the workforce, both in industry and in government?
Yeah, I think, mentorship is vitally important. And, I think one thing that jumps right out at me, is the importance of having people who want to help you be successful from around the country and really around the world. But going to those who have gone before you and being able to do that. I was really blessed to be a part of setting up the ISAC, Multi-State Information Sharing Analysis Centers mentoring program. Actually, way back when Elaine was a CISO in Delaware, and actually when I was wrapping up my career at the state of Michigan, and I'm still active in the community now, but leaving that role is like thinking about leaving a legacy. And there's a lot of experts from around the country who have been CISOs who really want to be able to help the younger CISOs when they come into that role and younger cybersecurity professionals. So having a mentor provides so much benefit to having a listening ear. You can talk to them. I would recommend somebody who's not actually in your chain of command, maybe somebody from another state or another government, somewhere else around the country, somebody who you can talk to about all kinds of questions that, quite frankly, you may not want to ask, somebody in your current situation, current government, your boss or whatever. Obviously, there are questions you do want to ask, but they're having the humility to be able to, be open, pick up the phone. We would do it at MSISAC. I know we set up the program where it was a regular kind of a monthly situation, maybe once a month, for an hour, having a set of questions you could, talk to, and having somebody who was a listening ear who could give you advice, whether it be about budget, whether it be about, cyber threats. How do you work with different political situations? How do you work through tough changes of administration, which we've, have some of those around the country right now. So, I mean, those are all situations that it's just wonderful to have somebody who's gone before you, who can give you that insight, who's been there, done that. And it's the program is available to government professionals. There are other mentoring programs out there, but I certainly encourage everyone to have a mentor or be a mentor. And I've been both, and I've done both, mentored many CISOs from around the country, and it's really, really helpful. And it's funny, even at being a mentor too, if you're thinking about that, you learn as much, almost reverse mentoring. You hear that term, where you can actually learn from the younger people, maybe about new technology and artificial intelligence, or things maybe you didn't know that are cutting edge. But I think passing along those stories, and we're going to share some of those, and passing along your advice to younger CISOs is really, really important, and having a mentor can help.
That's why I was so excited to have you on To the Point, because we've known each other for so long, and you've been my mentor, even from afar, just following your career and all the great things you've done. And coming from the state of Arkansas, our partnership with the state of Michigan, and how you work so closely with my CISO, Kim Patterson, I just want to thank you for that ongoing mentorship. I still have your number on speed dial.
Thank you. You're too kind, but likewise. I mean, I've learned a ton from you as well, Claire. So thank you.
Well, those are great insights, Dan. Going deeper on this topic, let's say a CISO you're mentoring calls up and says there's a budget that's so tight you can't get anything innovative or new done. What would you say? What are some of the options you would seek for them to maybe deploy?
Yeah, I mean, I see the budget question come a lot. I hear different companies, different experts, different leadership teams talk about, this strategy and that strategy, this product and that product, processes. And they say, but Dan, I don't have a budget, And so we've heard different answers over the years, which can certainly be helpful, like getting grants, grant programs. But people say, yeah, but that's one-time money. You hear different solutions I think the number one strategy that I tell people, I tell CISOs, is you need to be able to get on boats that are leaving the dock. And what I mean by that is, just picture there's an island out there, a little, image of, and it's called Money Island, right? That's where the resources are, the people are, the dollars, things you need. And you're like, yeah, but I don't have a boat. I don't know how to get out there. I don't know how to get to Money Island, if you want to call it that, as a kind of a tongue-in-cheek idea here. But the idea is, you see all these other boats leaving the dock, and they're getting there. So what I mean by that for CISOs, then, how does that apply? Is what are those projects, those other boats, or those other projects that are getting funded? So whatever government you're a part of, local, state, federal, whether you're involved in universities or K through 12, there's always projects that are being funded. There's always priorities. What are those top priorities? What are those top projects? I learned early on as a CISO that my team was not involved in some of the most important projects. And we were saying, looking at, we got some grant money, but we had, it was $100 million rewrite of our tax system. There was a new CISO system being installed. It was over $100 million. We had another transportation program that was $250 million over many years. I'm talking about not 1 year, but these were multi-year programs. And getting our people from my cybersecurity team on those projects was so vital. And so I say, get on boats leaving the dock. I mean, make sure you're involved in the most important priorities for your governor, for your mayor, for your leadership, and that your team is involved in those. And then while you're part of that, and we'll talk about some strategies within those projects in a few minutes, but the reality is making sure that you're getting to give them solutions and then, getting a percentage of that budget. So making sure that it's not just about, cybersecurity, it's also about the business goals, the business priorities, and that you're actually a part of the most important priorities for your government.
Yeah, and those are great insights. And to quote our former boss and mentor and CIO, Terry Takai, make sure the chief revenue officer, the budget officer is a good friend of yours and build that relationship, right?
Absolutely.
That's fantastic. Y'all both got to work with Terry Takai. Now, how fantastic is that? I've just known, again, talking about mentoring. So let's take a look back and a look forward. Let's play like you are back at the state of Michigan as a CISO. So Dan, what would you do differently now than what you did back in the day?
Yeah, so great question. And I want to just tell a story about Terry Takai. You mentioned both of you talking. Terry's a good friend now, so there's a happy ending to this. But, early days when she became my boss and I was the Michigan CISO, everyone talks about you go through forming, storming, norming, performing. I think that might be the order. I might have left one out of there or something. But we were kind of in the storming phase early on. So one of the early projects, I was the CISO in Michigan, and this takes us back 20 years now. So I'm going back a ways, but I was the CISO, and I had a team of people. And the project at the time is going to sound funny to you, but you'll see why this is related to today very much. The project Terry gave us was to put Wi-Fi in all of our state conference rooms. And so I was the CISO, and she said, Dan, I want to securely do this. And I had done my homework. I was from NSA background, and I had done my homework and had stories from NSA, CIA, DIA, FBI, all these different three-letter agencies. And they were all saying, don't do Wi-Fi, bad idea. And on top of that, it was interesting at the time, there were all these other headlines around war driving. That takes people back a long way. But if you don't know what war driving is, basically you could drive around Lansing or most cities in America and get access to almost any network that was out there. If you just drove by this, the Wi-Fi wasn't secured. It was early days and the protocols didn't work very well. And so people were getting into networks. Literally the headline from a week before this meeting happened, I'm going to tell you about, was how people had gotten into the Home Depot and Lowe's parking lots and got into the cash registers and downloaded all the credit card numbers from Home Depot and Lowe's because of the Wi-Fi. And so I know all these reasons I was against Wi-Fi. So I was the CISO who was, against Wi-Fi. So we get to this meeting, we're in a staff meeting with Terry, get to agenda item 4, about halfway through an hour-long meeting. It's about 10 people in this big government conference room. You can probably picture it. I'm sitting in the middle. Terry's at the end of the desk. And Terry says, okay, Dan, you got 5 minutes. Give us a quick overview of how we're going to put Wi-Fi securely in all of our state conference rooms. And I said, well, Terry, I'm canceling this project. This is a bad idea. And I handed out some sheets of paper and I said, everyone, please take one of these sheets. I don't have time to go through all these white papers here to explain to you, why this is a bad idea, but I'll get you more details if you want that. But I think we're going to cancel this project. And then, Terry's like, stop. And, you could cut the air with a knife, the silence. And Terry says, I want everyone to leave the room but Dan. And so everyone jumps up and runs out of the room. And I'm like shaking in my boots. I didn't know what was going on. Terry stands up, walks down, sits directly across from me. It's just me and her. This staff meeting has just ended, less than half over. And she said, Dan, if that's your answer, you can't be the CISO in Michigan. And I'm like, Terry, no, let me explain. She said, no, you stop. She said, I know why you're saying what you're saying. I know what those headlines are about Home Depot and Lowe's. I know, what those three-letter agencies are saying. We all know you're smart. You have your master's degree, you come from Johns Hopkins, and you're a computer science expert. Everybody knows you're from NSA. But she said, listen, I've been to Dow, Ford, Chrysler, and GM, and they all have Wi-Fi in their conference rooms. What do they know that you don't know? I'm giving you 1 week to come up with a plan on how we're going to do this, or I want your resignation. And I was like, blown away. Here I am, a young executive. Up to this point, I've only ever gotten the maximum bonus, the maximum performance appraisal. I'm here ready to get fired. I remember going back to my office and my team's like, tell them we're not going to do Wi-Fi. And I'm like, no, we're doing Wi-Fi. You're calling Dow, you're calling Ford, you're calling Chrysler, you're calling GM. We're going to do Wi-Fi. We're going to figure this out. And our team, adjusted. We put together a plan. We delivered it a week later. 2 years later, we rolled it out. We got the funding. We learned some things that we did wrong and that we could have improved. And 2 years later, we win the award for top Wi-Fi project in all 50 states. So we get this big award, but that's really not why I'm telling you guys this story. So the answer to your question, long-winded answer, Claire, is, you got to learn to get to yes. The answer, you got to get to yes. And some people were like, Dan, that's fine. That was 20 years ago. How's that relevant for today? Well, I mean, I've told that story for many, many years. I learned a hard lesson through that story. And, after Wi-Fi came cloud. After cloud came BYOD, bring your own device to work. After BYOD came Internet of Things, IoT. And now we all know, AI. And so it's like security pros, especially CISOs, are notorious, especially in government. The answer is no. What's the question? The answer is no. You can't do that. Why? Not secure. Can't do it. And I was that guy. That was me. And so I learned a hard lesson. It took me a long time to really understand that the answer is got to get to yes. Now you got to get there securely. We can talk about ways to do that, but the reality is you've got to get to yes. You've got to be an enabling CISO and really come up with solutions and hopefully alternatives that help people implement new technology, new innovations in a secure way. So it's a long-winded answer, but the story is a true story, and Terry will tell you. I learned a ton from Terry, but I learned a ton from that situation.
Absolutely love that story. And that's, as long as I've known you both, that's the first time I've heard it. And I think I know. I cannot believe there was something that I learned about you two that I hadn't already heard, because we've been working together for so long. I think too that looking forward to having been on the industry side now, and then looking how your experience with industry would impact you back in a government role is something I think about as well, from all that we've learned working together and the joy I have of working with people like you and Chris and everybody across the country. It's just an exciting next step of how we work with governments today.
Dan, that's an amazing story. I can tell you that same story Terry told in front of Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger and Susan Kennedy after that about how we get to yes, and that the answer is never no. So amazing story that she reused in front of a governor. That was just a great opportunity to look at realignment and reorganization in California. So couldn't have said it better. So Dan, one of the things too that we wanted to talk about moving forward as well is in the past, you've mentioned the importance of assessing people alongside processes and technology. Can you explain why that's so crucial to the CISO role today?
Yeah. Well, thank you. And great question. And Chris, I'll just say that's, I did not know that went to Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger. So I just learned something new from you. So thank you for sharing that. But just continuing on that same story, I just want to say, so I learned a valuable lesson. But I had to kind of relearn it, almost like peeling back layers of an onion over the next few years, even with Terry, but even with Ken Tice after Terry. And specifically, I want to just say, I talked to a senior executive from a large technology company who came and I talked to him about a year or two after that Wi-Fi story I just told you. And he was saying, Dan, he called me Danny at the time. 9 out of 10, we have people, process, and technology, but 90% of that is really about people. It's relationships. It's building relationships, and in government specifically, I'll tell you another story related to that. A couple years later, it was actually Terry again. So came to me and said, Dan, you're doing it again. And I'm like, what do you mean? And, well, you're getting to know. And I'm like, what do you mean I'm getting to know? I'm saying yes. We're saying yes. We're getting to solutions. We're being innovative. And she's like, go do lunch with Sue Doby. And I'm like, lunch? Okay. So Sue Doby at the time, she's still friend today again. At the time, a lot of tension, but she was one of our agency business executives. She was, we call it in Michigan, they call them now they were IOs at the time, interface officers, not CIOs. We had one state CIO, but we had business general managers or GMs today. But back then they called them IOs. But they basically were the technology business relationship person who worked between the technology agency and the agency of government. So she was very knowledgeable on the situation, and we went and had lunch. And she said, Dan, your people it's not working right now. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? Explain to me what's happening. And she said, well, so I've got people on the right projects. We talked about that earlier. Make sure you're involved in the key projects. You have the right priority. You're getting to yes. And she said, yeah, well, your people are kind of doing that, but what they're doing is this. We got this $100 million project. Your people are there, and they're like, we have a set of discussions. But then the next meeting, we have another project, and the solution they want to offer me is $1 million. And Dan, it's only a $500,000 project. So it's like, it's kind of like the old cliche you've heard, if you're a nail, everything, or if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. That's what I'm trying to say. And if you have a hammer and you're running around, trying to smash flies, you're going to break some windows that way, right? And so what I learned through that really was you had to have alternatives, almost like gold, silver, bronze. You needed to be able to have alternatives for the business and really be able to offer not just one size fits all, but a series of solutions. I tell people, think, when you fly a plane, you can fly coach, you can fly business class, you can fly first. Hopefully they'll all get you there safely, but you might have a very different experience, right? I mean, the reality is in the security world, you can have multiple solutions. Not all is going to, but bigger than that, what I learned through that, back to the relationship part of this, is that Sue Doby and I started having regular, maybe twice a year, we would get together for lunch. We'd do lunch. And I would learn and get that feedback. Your team's doing better at this, worse at that. We need to make adjustments. It wasn't a one size fits all. It was really a ongoing relationship. And the thing I learned through that in my years in government was, Sue, we always think about this project or that project, the Wi-Fi project, the CGIS project, the transportation project, the tax project, but the people lasted a lot longer than the individual project or the individual technology. So bottom line is I was doing lunch with Sue Doby for 5, 6, 7 years where I was getting that feedback. And, so I just tell technology pros or cybersecurity leaders that are watching this, go do lunch, not just with your technology people. I know you probably do that with your team members on, for your Halloween party or whatever. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about with the business areas and having those relationships throughout government and really being able to listen to the business, understand their requirements, understand how you can tailor the solution. And that relationship will last a lot longer than that one individual project or 2 projects or 3 projects. And so, having those good relationships will pay dividends across a whole series of projects over literally years. And so it's so important. Relationships can make a big difference. Yes, technology is important. Yes, the processes are important. But if you have the right relationships, it's so much easier to get things done in meaningful, lasting ways.
Well said. No, you're spot on, Dan. Couldn't agree with you more.
Dan, what amazing perspectives and insights. We appreciate having you on today's episode so much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really been a pleasure.
And likewise, Dan, thank you for sharing your insights with us. And thank you all for watching. I'm Chris Cruz.
And I'm Claire Bailey, and this is To the Point.